a lot of people should be preparing for year-end taxes. But right now, make some charitable contributions. And by the way, there's a lot of changes to the tax rules, the tax laws. They're going to start effective in the 2018 tax year and calendar year 2019. So make sure you consult a professional to find out what they are and how you can benefit from them. Just this week, we had a plumber and an electrician, both who owe in excess of $100,000 in back payroll taxes. Both nice guys, both got themselves into a legitimate pickle, and they just have to get themselves out of it. It's a specialized field, so if you owe back taxes, make sure you seek professional advice.
This is Hire It Done. My name's Adam Helfman. In studio with me, longtime friend, tax expert, tax pro, radio host too.
Yeah.
Lawrence Levy, welcome.
Couple of radio hosts. Good morning. Thanks.
Lawrence, you have a radio show in Florida, right?
We do, yeah. Every Saturday morning. It's great right after this, and doing it for almost 12 years now, so it's good stuff.
And your company's called Levy Tax Pros?
Actually, Levy and Associates, the website, levytaxhelp.com, but the email is levytaxpro.
So tax and home improvement, people are like, wait, what's this?
A lot of people say, wait, what's this? And a lot of people say, wait, we got tax season coming up right around the corner, and what do you do if you haven't prepared? Well, now's the time you should prepare. So for all your listeners, contractors, and homeowners, got a few tips. There's a lot of changes that came about this year with some of the new tax law changes. In particular, a lot of people who are self-employed, there's a 20% deduction if you qualify. So a big change. A lot of the tax rates have been changed. They've lowered. And in addition to that, so that we stick to your lovely assistant's questions so that we don't get in trouble by the lovely Erica, right? We always want to make sure she's happy with everything in life because she's a great add-on to your life. There's a lot of things that should be looked at this year in particular because there's some significant changes. So consult a tax professional. This time of year is always good to tax plan because guess what? After December 31st, it's too late. You can't go back and write any checks again.
So the advice we're going to give to the listeners right now, which involves contractors and homeowners,
correct,
is so that they can act before December 31st.
Okay. That's right.
So let's talk about homeowners for a second.
Yeah.
If I've done home improvements this year, what should I be doing before the end of the year to maximize any available tax savings?
You want to save all of your receipts and you want to consult with your CPA. So you want to make sure that whatever you may have done that may be a tax credit is going to be allowed. And you want to also be, in fact, we had a client a couple years ago that had some energy improvements and they tried to self-prepare their own tax return and they put it on the wrong line and it wasn't really applicable and it turned into a big mess and they thought they had a refund of $9,000 and instead they really owed $12,000. So moral of that story, yeah, very confusing, but they try to do it themselves. And I said, look, you guys are a great electrician, but you're not an accountant. Why? You saved a few $100s and tried to do it yourself? Insane.
Yeah, well, listen, some people don't understand what to do. They don't know that there's available pros out there like you that can help them.
Absolutely.
Now, what about changes to the tax code? Can you give us a couple things that might surprise homeowners when they're preparing their returns?
Yeah, well, for anyone in general, there's been some rate changes to the tax rates and also the deduction. Your standard deduction almost doubled. So if you're single, it almost doubled, and if you're married, it almost doubled. And then one of the other big changes that are going to impact people is they capped the deduction for property taxes and withholding tax at $10,000. So now if you pay over $10,000 in property tax or you have more than $10,000 in withholding, you're capped at that itemized deduction of $10,000. So that's one of the changes. But for the contractors that are out there listening, there are some benefits now to being a C Corp. There are also benefits, a 20% deduction for someone who is the owner of an S Corp or if you're self-employed, and there are also benefits for being self-employed. What you want to be careful of for contractors alike and for contractors who hire staff is what's the classification? Are they truly a W-2 employee or should you be paying them as an independent contractor?
Well, that's the independent contractor status has always been for contractors a tough, wiggly gray area that the IRS has. They have strict guidelines, but some people just overlap and they don't follow.
They don't, but I will tell you, in my opinion, in the next few years, that independent contractor status is going to be closely looked at because of the benefits of being an independent contractor now because of that 20% credit. So just
let's
be
use
cautious.
this as an example. So window company.
Yeah.
Window company hires salespeople. The salespeople are basically independent contractors.
Well, what does basically mean? There you go. So
Okay.
basically, right? So if they are, so does that salesperson work exclusively for that company?
Yeah, that means they're really an employee.
That's correct. For the majority of the time in our analysis, the independent contractor test versus the W-2 is usually a pretty easy one to make. And if they blur the lines, you don't want to get yourself into a pickle, because what if you have that disgruntled worker that files a claim for overtime and says, I shouldn't have been an independent contractor, and now there's an employment tax audit, and that's not a good thing.
It costs the business owner. In fact, speaking of business owner, what's the number one mistake business owners make that makes them pay more taxes?
They either don't have a good set of books, and they're either going to overstate the income or they're going to understate their expenses. Oftentimes, one of the biggest things that we see are contractors who don't have a good, clean set of books. It's just a mess. It's a shoebox, and we have to come back and create a QuickBooks file for them and try and get them on the right track. And after they've got back on that right track, they feel just a weight lifted off of their shoulders.
Is that a service you offer for contractors?
It is. We do accounting, bookkeeping, payroll. So besides the conventional accounting, tax return, tax prep stuff, we also deal with a lot of contractors who have IRS or state tax problems, which is another, and for us, it's just a natural transition.
I think a lot of you see a trend where a lot of your clients happen to be in the home improvement field or in the contracting business.
We do. The roofers, the electricians, the plumbers. In fact, just in the past week alone, we had an electrician and a plumber that were referred to us by two different very honorable CPAs that said, this is just not my area of specialty.
Right.
And they both have over $100,000 in back payroll tax debt. They're both local here to the Metro Detroit area. They're really nice guys. The CPAs are two really nice guys who referred them. And unfortunately, they just got themselves into a pickle, and they both have local IRS revenue officers, and you want to make sure that you deal with that head on and proactively with a professional.
Well, and I'm glad you gave that information, because a lot of contractors are afraid. They don't, understand payroll tax. They don't, they have to pay bills this week,
right? Make
payroll, but then I'll pay the payroll taxes in the end of the quarter.
It's the quintessential catch-up.
Yep.
That never gets caught up. And by the way, I don't know if you want to talk about Greg, but Greg used to work here at the IRS locally in Pontiac in the past couple of minutes.
Yeah, let's talk to Greg really quick. Are you there, Greg?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm listening.
So, Greg, good morning, and welcome to Adam's show, Hire It Done, the famous Adam Helfman, 97.1 Hire It Done show. Thanks for getting up early with us. Greg, you worked at the IRS locally in Pontiac for how many years?
32 years as a revenue officer and a revenue officer examiner. So I'm an expert when it comes to differences of independent contractors versus employees, the 20 common law factors. I used to do employment tax audits for 3 years at the IRS. I was an offer and compromise specialist for 3 years, and I worked in the ATAX specialty team for many years.
Greg,
looking at phony trust.
Let me ask you a question. Over your years of experience at the IRS, did you come across a lot of contractors? Is it like a thing that contractors just aren't real good at that part of it?
And tons of contractors. And the biggest hurdle contractors have is the people who work underneath of them. Are they true independent contractors, or are they really glorified employees?
Okay.
And for that, the IRS has the 20 common law factor test. And actually, if you are a worker and you're just getting paid on 1099, but this is the only place you work at, if it is a roofing company and you're a roofer and you have a supervisor over you and you get paid so much an hour, or you get paid by the square that you put down, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you sign a contract saying you're an independent contractor. What it does matter is who is the boss.
And Greg, talk about
to do your job.
And Greg, talk about bosses, since I'm yours. Let's end the quick second of the show here for Adam and the listeners on a positive note. Greg represented a contractor that owed the IRS over $250,000, maybe more with interest and penalties, had a very difficult, shall we say, revenue officer, and you were able to successfully get an offer and compromise through, and I believe the amount was south of $50,000, was it, or in the $40,000 you settled for against his $250,000?
It was around $32,000, $38,000 then he was just doing handstands, even though he's a cancer survivor.
Right.
It didn't matter at the time to the IRS, but we got it through. We got through as our agreed offer. Guy went on his way, and we fixed him up permanently for the rest of his life.
And he's thrilled. And so, by the way, thank you for that. And also, we should say thank you for your service to the country. Greg was in the Navy as a veteran in the Gulf War. So, Greg, we always like to say that on the radio show and publicly. We appreciate your service to the country, and Adam, we appreciate you coming on the Hire It Done show.
Thanks, Greg. We appreciate that. So, Lawrence, let me ask you really quick. What's one tip we can give to contractors or business owners right now that, or let's say, what's like a deduction they can make, before the end of the year?
Charitable contributions are always good. If you think you've had a very healthy year and you have a mortgage, depending upon what you want to do, if you're going to pay your mortgage January 1st, January 5th, why not pay it December 31st so that it posts? So in theory, you would have 13 months worth of your interest deductions. Obviously, that's only going to work once because next year you're only going to have 11. So there's something that you can do there. And also, if you're planning on buying, if you're a contractor planning on buying a vehicle, buy the vehicle now. You can take accelerated depreciation. There's benefits.
So there's a lot.
There's a lot of things. Consult with a professional. Give us a call. Certainly, we're happy to help 7 days a week.
What's the 800 number to call you?
800 tax Levy, and yes, Levy really is my last name.
800 tax Levy. I want to thank you for coming on.
And I wanted to say one thing. Besides everyone who knows Adam, he's such a great guy and he's a great father, and I really love when we talk about our boys.
Thank you, Lawrence. You're a longtime friend of mine. I appreciate that. I respect you highly.
Well, there you go.
Appreciate that.
Back at you,
Well,
buddy.
that wraps up our first hour, folks, but don't worry. We've got one more to go, and it'll be even better. We keep our flooring project of the month going. We're going to find out which home improvement splurges are worth it, and we're going to shine a spotlight contract, and we got the BBB coming in. I'm Adam Helfman. You're listening to the Hire It Done Radio Network.